You're going to have to think of some way to where are you storing the guitars once they get to this point, once they get ready. I do have, you can go, this is just a Walmart cheapy $30 hanger, and you'll find this works well for when they're hanging for painting and hanging for drying. Okay, we'll go and I'll do a spray paint to show you how that works. But the other thing you have to think about is you'll actually see, if you haven't noticed, you guys see how I have handles on? So I have a handle set. You need to figure a way, how are you holding it to paint? So you can see, this is just cheap pine. Okay. So you can see how we go and screw it onto it. And then we have a handle to paint it, just so you know. You don't see in here unless you don't want to monkey with inside here, because that's where your neck and your body meet. If you care about the paint, this doesn't get seen here because you put a plate over it. Now you'll paint it, but just realize, so when you do this, when I put some screws in it, and I've gone and I just made a bunch of these. So I put these in, and I'm just taking this and then just to hold it. Does that make sense? Now these screws are longer than you can get the right size one, but I just just a regular sheetrock screw. The other thing too is I did do hooks. So I did go and drill out hooks on it, but the kids bust that. So just drill a hole, and then that gives you the ability, one, to hang on your 3D printer, and it will give you the ability to hang it. But now that gives me the ability to spray it and paint it, and also and this is just, does that make sense? Yeah. That's something I had to learn. You got what happens to the guitar when you're in the process once you get it sanded and pressed. You guys get that? What also happens, you guys had the boxes. So you had these boxes in it. What I do is once we take the body out with the neck, we're working on those. We put the parts stay in the box, and I have a place that those just go. And we only bring them out when it's time for assembly. I have a couple pick guards that they can check their shape and size, for the design. But you do want to think about this. They'll lose every screw known to man. I do have some plastic tubs. You can buy a bunch of cheap tubs. So you can see these plastic tubs. You can buy these I had a whole bunch of little ones so that they go and put all their screws in at the beginning, and they sort them and they know. I would recommend that, because I find no matter what I do, they go and lose them all. So our first step is, so we've sanded our guitar. Our job is to get it all nice and smooth. We sanded, we wetted a little bit to pull up the grain, and sanded again to see any blemishes. Right? Then you have to decide, are you showing the wood or are you not? If you're showing the wood, you have to make sure it's really perfect, right? If you're not showing the wood, then it's not as bad, because you're going to cover it. This stuff, all these spaces in here don't matter at all, because you're never going to see them. The only time these matter, and I did bring it, you can put, I don't have my kids do this, but if this is shielding, if you spray this in here, they actually have copper tape. This is to protect the electronics. Sometimes you'll have guitars that will go make a buzzing noise and stuff, because it's picking up the other electronic signals. You are really worried. I've never done it with these guys, and they never come back and go, oh, it's really horrible. But if you've ever plugged I'll show it to you. When you plug your guitar in, if you have a bad electricity, if I plug my guitar into any of my hanging extension cords, I'll get a feedback, because it's going through there and coming through there. This stuff helps get rid of that sort of stuff if you're interested. Yeah, this is paint, but there's like a copper tape, and you just buy the copper tape and you put it all in the cavity. I just want to point out, this cavity doesn't matter for paint, or no one's ever going to see it. You can put that paint in if you're going to worry about it. I'm building that tribute guitar. I'm going to do that. So if I have my musician friend, that's not stopping it. You can do it by the copper or there. Does that make sense? Okay. You're not going to see that. I do have to say, if you are going to dip or anything beyond that, you do have to seal this. So if you plan on, okay, I'm going to keep the wood, color and stain it. So you can see this guitar, this girl sanded this. See how it's like a darker color? This is that cheap. It's really lightweight, that cheap. This is just a stain on it. Looks kind of cool, you know. But if she was gonna, I've had kids dip this after, like she said, oh, I want it wood, but I want to put dip on it. Well, we have to seal this, because when we put it in the water, it will suck the water in. So that's, you know, it's what you're planning on doing. Does that make sense?
Who cares if it sucks it in?
Well, it will mess up. It will make, it could crack it. It could, you know what I mean? It's depending, you know. Yeah. Yeah. If you're spraying, if you're not going to do dip or anything with the water, it doesn't matter. You see what I'm saying? I have to bring that up because this girl, I've had one kid do it. He did this, and I like this, stained it, sealed it, but then when said, oh, I'm going to dip it too. So we had to, all you do is spray and seal. Like you'll see, it does take 2 seconds, but seal the whole thing. If you're not doing that, this does not matter. The only time this matters if you're trying to put shielding or anything like that. Does that make, I just want to point that out so that you'll find a lot. And by the way, a lot of the cover covers like pieces of the guitar too. So like I've had kids spend hours painting, and I'm like, what are you doing? It doesn't matter because it's going to be covered. This girl that's doing her design now, she's hand painted this, and see the edges, but see, she put what the pick guard is, so she knows what's going to be covered and not. She doesn't have to do it. She could paint underneath. It won't matter because when you put the pick guard, you won't see it. But, and I'm going to talk to her about this, saying, you know, but she's taking this off her design. Primer. So you can spray primer. You want to think of, this is like for metal, this is etching, acid etching. So this is like automotive, but I just bringing it because just think about what primer you're doing. You want primer that is, it's going to say it's wood and clay. You can get primers that's colored. You can get black, whatever colors you paint that will layer on. Primer will seal it. You can get sandable primer. So you spray the body, then you let it dry and you sand it. And then you take that dust off and you spray another coat and you can build in. It is a built-in filler. It's not as good as this stuff. Wood grain filler. This is just a brand, but what this does is you can seal. So some of you guys are going to be like, when I'm done, I want it to look like beautiful, really smooth. Mirror. You have to fill the grain in if you're going to do that.
A lot different than back in the day when wood, especially
Yeah.
oak and stuff, used bowling alley.
Yeah. You can use.
Can I show you something?
Yeah.
This is a guitar makers or furniture makers
Let me-
brand as well. This is you want to share that?
So this is sanding sealer, wood grain filler. So you put,
Crystal company.
okay, and I'll put this link in there. There's 5 million versions. This is okay. So what this does is you do one layer of grain filler because the grain's open, right? And you'll see my guitars, like some of them. So this is painted. Yeah, this is painted, but can you see the grain? See the wood grain in it? You'll see the lines and everything. If you don't want that, you have to put the wood grain filler first. Then when you let it dry and you sand, then you put that sealer on. Some of your guitars, this guitar had sealer already in it. If you actually look, it came like this, right? But when you touch it, it has like a glisten to it, and it's actually it's sealed already. Because see this spalted top. When he does it, it's gonna pop if he does stain or ink on it. Does that make sense? Make sure you email those, and I'll put them in.
If you're using stain, if you put the sealer on.
It's what you're trying to get for the look, right? Stains and ink show the wood. That's why it is funny because you like these really are not, this wood is fine, but it's not like, ooh, beautiful grain. You can see that one had a tint to it, they're trying to make the wood really, really nice. It's up to what you're trying to get for the look. And I'll show you samples. I'm going to, this girl, this is wood stain. This is taking stain and putting stain on. And you can do different colors. See how it shows the wood and everything? It's great.
Did she seal it, then stain it? Or
she stained it. Then she sealed. This is stain and a little simple thing of seal. And I'll talk about sealing in a second. The kids don't care. And when you're done, you'll find a lot of it looks pretty cool when I get to dip painting. This girl never, this is paint. You can't see the wood grain in it because the paint's covering enough of it. And then she did all this hand painting, so it doesn't matter. It's depending what they're trying to get from it. I do have pack cloth. All that is when you're all done and you're ready to paint, if you have any dust, anything on it, you want to make sure it comes off. So tack cloth is just like a wax cloth that you stick in and make sure everything else. You can just wipe it. Like again, most of the stuff the kids are never going to do. You as teachers, I know I have teachers come back, but I want it to look perfect. So you really have to make sure, like think of this with painting or anything prep is the hard thing, not the painting. Having it once it's all prepped, that's the hard part. When you see cars, really fancy cars, it's the hours of prepping. I have a black classic Mustang. We painted it, and as soon as you paint it, all these dents show up. That because it's black. Black sucks, but I purposely did it. It's practice paint. It's so that I can look at it and go, and we'll redo it again. The labor is the cost. This is an epoxy. Okay, so someone had lasered something on. Okay, or I'll have kids that are gouging. We'll put things in that way, depending on if you want to feel the divots or not feel the divots. If you don't, an epoxy will coat it. We'll do a sealing of it. You're using the epoxy. You're using and again, I put this in the thing, but you're using this to seal and put a coat of lacquer, like really thin. You can, like all my tables have a coat.
It's a leveler.
It's a leveler. Yeah, it levels it out. Does that make sense? Now, in between, the other thing, if the smoother you get, like all my tables have a poly on it, what you can do is in between layers, 0 steel wool, not the wool you go and not steel wool you do dishes with. Okay. I had a teacher go, it's scratched it all up. No. 0 steel wool. It's really, really smooth. Now it will make little pieces of steel when you break apart. So you do have to tack, or you have to make sure you really wipe off, or you'll embed as we put polys and things on. You'll embed that in. But with that red guitar, I'm stuck home. I literally every day I'd go out and put a coat on. I'd come back the next day, steel it all off, come back and do another coat. And I did like 20 coats, and you'll see it gets glossier and glossier and glossier. Same with spray. So if you want something like really smooth, the more, again, notice it's all labor. The guitar, like the good high quality, it's labor. But that's something you have for the kids are free, right? The kids can take your time to do it. Also,
you can market that as a real metal guitar.
yeah, the other thing that's kind of cool about it too is what's going to happen to you while you're doing the kid is you got one kid that will be way ahead, one kid will be behind. Also, there's sometimes, if you guys notice when you were bandsaw, I had to be over on the bandsaw with the other kids. So, like I have a couple, do the design while I'm doing that. Or, okay, yeah, you done? Like they come in, she's been throwing a coat of poly on this guitar. See how it's starting to get glossy? What she'll do is when she comes in, I say steel wool it, and then she puts a coat on, and I'll show you how to do that in a little bit. And then lets it dry, comes back the next day. I have to talk to kids about curing versus dry. Dry to the touch doesn't mean that it's cured. Ice can have a hard surface, doesn't mean you can stand on it. It might not be thick enough. Same thing with this, but because they'll do it and go, oh, it's dry to the touch, Miss Kelly, we can, and they'll start gouging and doing things. Oh, paint's done. No. You got to get them spread it out. But you guys see that? Okay, and so she's steel wooling this in between. The more you do, the nicer it will get. I got this aqua one because it's water-based. I would recommend with kids and things, if you think about water-based stuff, that you're better off. When you start using, we're going to talk about the oils and stuff, but the farther you get away from that, the easier it is for you. So that's why I have this one, because it's water-based.
So if you're gonna stain and you've got a really open poured
Yeah.
wood, you'd stain it, not worry about the filler.
Yeah,
Because
I would.
the filler's gonna mess up the stain.
If you're trying to get the look, I would stain it
And then go with multiple layers.
to get that smooth of that. That's where it becomes like a quality of wood. Like, that's why when I give kits to kids, when we start with the 10 that I have now, I said, okay, who would like to paint? Who would like to stain? And then, because every one of your kits will be a different quality. Yep. And some of the kits you'll pull out and they just happen to have the right wood together, and the wood is fabulous and it's gorgeous. That's the kit I save for the kid that wants to do wood.
So you'll search through those.
Yeah,
before you
the
get
10 that
going.
come in, I'll kind of look through and go, 99% of the kids don't. You'll see there's a couple like either inking or staining is the only time you really see. The rest of it all gets
Because
covered.
they're gonna paint it.
Yeah, doesn't matter. Other thing too is if you come in and you have some kits once in a while have dents and stuff in it, you can take water, put it on the dent and let it sit and it will pull the dent out. That doesn't, like I've had broke pieces, you can take sand, create sawdust, I have just super glue, put super glue in it and then it can make it. Now I will point out some of these cheaper kits, you'll actually see on this guitar, see on the headstock, see that white? That right there is glue. That's wood filler that they put in. And so I told the girl, I said, this is gonna pop. And again, she didn't care. But just realize, now these kits are not as good as those kits, but if they don't care, they'll throw in wood glue and stuff like that.
So those little holes, those were already there.
Yeah, those were there.
That's
When
what
they
the
sanded,
company
they
did.
got done, they went, oh, we'll throw some wood glue in it or some glue with sawdust, sand it. If you do sawdust and clear super glue, you won't get this white artifacting, but because they just use wood glue, that's what happened. Yeah.
So got your super glue and your dust.
Yeah.
What do
You put
do?
your dust in
Okay.
and you take,
They get
So-
them out.
I bought Starbond does some glues. So you can buy it in thin, medium, and thick. So I do, depending on what you're trying to do, but then it gives you thin applicators too. So sand a little bit. I save sawdust a bunch of times. I'll sand and I just have little bags of sawdust. Put the sawdust in, then take the super glue and fill it.
Yeah.
And you can go above a little bit because when you're done, you'll sand it to level. Spray accelerator too. So if you want it to cure faster, so if I put the glue in, right, the thing, and I go like this, it'll dry like almost immediately too. This comes as a kit. It's Starbond. Again, I put that in the thing. You don't have to get this fancy. Just cheap wood glue from Harbor Freight does too. But I do it in the crevice in the thing.
And the super glue really does penetrate down.
Yes,
through
if
the
you
roll.
use if the thin stuff,
One thing you want to do when you put the sawdust is pack it in really well.
does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's loose, it has to
Yeah.
dry right now.
And if you take sawdust from the guitar itself, then the wood is the exact same.
So what's
So-
interesting is the.
Yeah. And again, if you watch, the one thing about guitar, if you go on YouTube, there's 5 million people building them. It's insanely good guitar creators right within us. And Uni is a guy that he does marquee thing where you carve out and you put inlays in. He made the Allman Brothers, like a $20,000 guitar that it's like you look at it and it's gorgeous. But it's a year of building and it's a hand built thing. And then the other day I had the storyteller guy that sells guitar stuff come in. If you need any of that, that's available too. But there's a guy right up the road that that's what he does for a living. He builds them. I didn't know him, and I didn't know he existed until I had something. And I went over. I'm looking at his guitars, going, and that's what he does for a living. So all these tricks are out there. He just gave me some more tricks that that stuff I've never used. So does that make sense so far? But I do need you to think about what you're trying to do. Your guitars have a little bit of it's depending on sealing. Like this one right here, you can see there's some dents in it. If I was worried about that, I would just take some water and you can actually take a cloth, wet it, take a iron, put it up, not on the wood, but burn it and it will pull that grain up again. Or again, I'd sand and fill it in. Everybody good with that? Yeah.
One thing about this one, guys, like this, like it's fine. Like those are solid. The wood is solid. But in this top, this is a veneer. So you have to be careful. Like right here, you can see that actually the veneer was actually sanded. So you can see the actual solid wood. So this one is a little more delicate. Let me show this over. You can see right there.
Yeah. So what he's saying is this is a solid piece. They glued a bunch of pieces together. You can actually see the line. And then you glue them and then they cut the body out of it. Then on the top, they lay, this gets, routed. Then they lay a thin piece of veneer to get this faulted. That my red guitar that has the maple, that's a veneer. But he's saying you can sand off the veneer. If I go in, I can sand that off. Yours are solid, so there's no way to sand the body guitar off. But he's right to bring that up. We're good? Comfortable? All right. So I've done that. Oh, materials, gloves. So go to your school. I guarantee they have 5 million gloves from COVID. Mask and gloves, don't ever buy again. Go to them. And my custodians are like, you want some? Because they have stacks and stacks and stacks and stacks of this stuff. They don't need to be fancy. You can go like Harbor Freight and buy like a little bit thicker one. When we go and put our oils and our polys, we'll put gloves on. The water-based stuff, you don't have to worry about as much, but just think your gloves there. Some sort of rag. You can use paper towels, but you need lint-free. Okay. Nothing's worse than kids will grab stuff that has lint all in it and they'll rub it on their guitar and then they'll have lint or embedded stuff. I am trying to find, these are huge. I'm trying to find like just small, short, tiny ones, or you can buy bags of rags. I'm trying to find a good one that just like, because you'll throw these away. Does that make sense?
Are the bags of rags lint-free?
Yeah, just check. That's what I'm trying to find, the right one. It says it. You just got to be, the t-shirt ones that are cotton that say lint-free are not too bad. I ordered those because those have worked, but I am trying to find something that is a little bit. I don't need it that fine. I tried to cut that, and the only problem is if you cut out, you create lint.
It's all linty.
It's all linty. So, and I also hate. Now, by the way, you'll see, and we'll talk about this. I use these when I'm doing my oil. You can see it's hard now. So I try to keep using them until I throw away. I don't ever throw these away, like, because if you do this, you could create a fire, because they'll spontaneous cut because they'll create heat. So what we always do is we lay them out and they dry, and then when they're all dry, then I throw them away when they're not good. Usually I can get 4 corners. I've got the kids trained to do that though, for if you're going to use true oil, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But you're going to use rags for a couple different reasons. But you got to think about something that kids will run and grab the paper towels. Some stuff doesn't matter, but just realize I've looked at white little powder puffs everywhere over it. Are we good so far? Mm-hmm. All right. That's all prep. That's my guitar ready to paint or design. Now my next step is, okay, now I'm ready to design. Okay, good. I'm ready to start dying. Then I'm going to decide, am I staining? Am I inking? Am I painting? Am I hydro dipping? So you can see I have stain here. I'll turn this so that you don't have to. I've got stain. So this one was stained. This one she inked. So you can see how it's an inking. See how you still see the wood grain? Okay. Then you go and I do a lot of inking on necks for color. Inking on necks. So you might do something different for your body, something different for your neck. The reason I do inking for my neck, I don't paint my necks. You can, but you'll see how this kid painted? Well, what's going to happen is every time he runs his hands up and down it, he's going to feel it, unless we put a whole bunch of coatings of clear coat or whatever way we're going to finish it and seal it. Does that make sense? But it's his choice, and they'll go crazy. They won't. The hardest thing is going to stop. No more painting. There are times I have to say, we're done. You can't do anymore because we're just running out of time. We won't be able to finish it. But, and like this is a hand paint, and you'll see it. At some point you should come over and touch the hand painted ones and go, oh yeah, I can feel it. It slows my hand down to play it. And then you'll go over to the inked ones and you'll go, oh yeah, you won't feel it at all. Now, these feel differently because this one is inked and we put coats of poly on it. So it has the true oil. We inked it, put a coat of poly on it, steel wooled it, cleaned it, inked it, steel wool, polyed it, kept doing it, and you'll see the difference. Can you guys walk around and let them? So this white one is paint. Here, this one, here, paint. This one here is inked with a coat of true oil on it, but not steel wool yet. And this one is all steel wool. Like you put a couple coats and a couple steel wool. You're not going to touch the headstock of your guitar a lot. There's sections of your guitar you're never going to touch. So I don't spend hours smoothing that area out. That becomes an issue when you get ready to play your guitar, is playability. That's why you'll see a lot of guitars, they won't paint at all. It's just they keep it the wood color. Okay. You'll see I'm gonna laser a name. I've lasered names on my guitars before, but I do it really, really thin so that you can't even feel it. If I'm gonna do a deeper, I'd epoxy it and seal it so you can't feel it. This becomes a playability issue. You really got to think about that when you're doing it. This stuff, by the way, and again, stuff gets hidden, but you can pick what you want for your headstock design. That becomes a little bit what you're gonna. You don't see some stuff, like I don't see underneath the tuners. I don't see underneath the pick guard. I don't see underneath the back plate. I don't see underneath the where the plug plugs in. I don't see where the bridge. Is that making sense?
So if you didn't do any coating on it,
You didn't do any coating.
would you do like an oil?
Yeah, well, you've got to do some sort. Can I have that one?
Just so.
This right here has just wood, nothing else. Okay. You can keep sanding it, and you can get it really, really smooth. Then you can just put a nice little clear coat on it. And I'm going to show you 5 different versions of clear coating, either oil, either water-based.
You can do oil, and that just keeps it from absorbing.
This stuff right here is all oil-based. You'll see the shine. The more you do,
it's just a hand-rubbed oil.
Yeah, just a gun stock type thing.
Yeah.
And the more you do, and the key is a thin coat. Kids will want to do it all at once, and when you'll see when it comes out, I've looked over and kids are like, but with oils and stuff, it doesn't work. A thin coat, let it dry, steel wool it.
Yep.
Another thin coat, because you got to think about it. I talked about the kids. If you microscope and looked at this table that has poly on it, it's not perfectly smooth. The poly's like this. If I steel wool it, I'm knocking the level down. Then I throw another coat and it kind of levels it out, and I do another. Pretty soon it's crystal. It's a smooth layer, and that's what you're trying to do.
Because the other thing with the polys too is depending on how hot-handed you are.
Yeah.
You can affect.
Yeah, it's going to, and the more rub and you'll and
Temperature hand, hot
Right,
handed.
like if
I'm doing this.
Some people have hot, humid hands.
So if I do this,
You're
I'm
get
gonna.
sticky spots.
You're going to get sticky spots. Okay. But again, this is a functioning piece of art. So it adds a little bit to it, right? So you got to think it's not just, oh, I'm playing. This area is really work. And you'll see, we're going to do the frets today, and you're going to see a little bit of why we have to play with that a little bit. But
if you do really thin, quick layers of the poly,
Yeah.
you don't have so much of that moisture.
Yeah, yes. Does that make sense
Never really-
so far? Okay.